British roads belonged to British trucks. Leyland, Foden, Atkinson, AEC. These weren't just brands, they were institutions. British hauliers wouldn't dream of buying foreign. Then a Swedish truck arrived, the Volvo F88. Within 2 decades, the British truck industry had collapsed. By 2024, Volvo leads the European market with 17.9% market share. This is the story of how one Swedish manufacturer destroyed an empire. The Golden Age. Britain entered the 1970s as a haulage superpower. 20 UK truck manufacturers operated across the country. Leyland dominated. Foden and Atkinson held loyal followings. AEC, Albion, Guy, Scammell and Thornycroft filled niches. Bedford pumped out over 100,000 units annually in 1960. British trucks dominated Commonwealth markets. Australia, New Zealand, India, Nigeria all bought British. Export income flowed. Skilled jobs numbered in the tens of thousands. The industry thrived. British hauliers operated in 2 camps. Light and medium weight operators ran Bedfords and Fords on local routes. Serious long-haul operators invested in Gardner-powered heavyweights, Atkinsons, ERFs and Fodens. These were the elite, the 8-wheelers, the rigid trucks that defined British haulage. Gardner engines were legendary. The 6LW, the 5LW, the massive 8LXC straight 8 at 265 brake horsepower, unveiled in 1980. Reliable, economical, British. Hauliers specified Gardner engines and wouldn't accept alternatives. The combination of British chassis and Gardner engines seemed unbeatable. Then the 1970s brought change. New motorways shortened journey times. Container traffic exploded. Cheap 28, 30 and 32 tonners from Europe arrived. Small hauliers could suddenly afford maximum weight outfits. The market transformed. And British manufacturers weren't ready. The Swedish invasion Volvo launched its F86 and F88 range in Britain. The impact was immediate. These trucks offered something British manufacturers hadn't considered essential: driver comfort. The F88 featured a spacious cab with excellent visibility. The seat was adjustable. The ride was smooth. Drivers actually wanted to spend time in these trucks. The cab design represented Swedish thinking about driver welfare. British manufacturers viewed drivers as operators who steered vehicles. Volvo viewed drivers as professionals whose comfort directly affected safety and productivity. The F88's cab was taller, allowing drivers to stand upright. The dashboard was logically laid out with clearly visible instruments. The steering wheel was adjustable. Storage compartments were thoughtfully positioned. These weren't expensive additions, they were intelligent design. Sleeper cabs told the story perfectly. British sleeper cabs felt like afterthoughts, cramped spaces where exhausted drivers tried to rest. Volvo's sleeper cab was a bedroom on wheels, a proper mattress, room to move, ventilation that actually worked. Drivers finishing long hauls in Volvos arrived fresher than those in British trucks. Fleet managers noticed productivity improvements. Power was another revelation. Volvo offered engine outputs that British trucks couldn't match. The F88's turbocharged diesel delivered performance that made British Gardner-powered trucks feel outdated. Acceleration was brisk. Hill climbing was effortless. Motorway cruising was relaxed. Quality sealed the deal. Volvo trucks were built to Swedish standards. Panel gaps were tight. Paint finish was excellent. Nothing rattled, nothing leaked. British trucks, by comparison, felt agricultural. The gap in build quality was obvious to anyone who looked. From Holland, DAF introduced its 2800 series. The Dutch offered something else British manufacturers hadn't prioritised: support. DAF's warranty and breakdown package was market leading. British hauliers, initially sceptical of these foreign trucks, discovered DAF products were quirky but superbly engineered and reliable. British hauliers faced a choice: stick with familiar British brands or embrace superior foreign alternatives. The F88 and DAF 2800 weren't just slightly better, they were dramatically better. Drivers loved them. Fleet managers saw improved uptime. Accountants appreciated fuel economy. The reaction from British manufacturers was slow. Years of protected markets and loyal customers had created complacency. When Leyland finally responded with the Marathon in the mid-1970s, it was already too late. The Marathon used existing components because Leyland couldn't afford proper development. It was perceived as a stopgap. The Volvo invasion proved fatal because it coincided with British industry's worst weaknesses. British Leyland was hemorrhaging money, propping up its failing car divisions. Investment in trucks dried up. Development stopped. Quality declined. The gap between Swedish excellence and British mediocrity widened monthly. The Great Collapse. The 1980s brought catastrophe. By the end of the decade, Britain's once thriving truck manufacturing sector had been decimated. Where 20 manufacturers operated in 1970, only a handful survived by 1990. The industry that had earned valuable export income and provided tens of thousands of skilled jobs simply collapsed. Bedford went first. General Motors' British truck division had entered the heavyweight sector in 1972 with the ill-fated TM range. The high-revving Detroit diesel two-stroke engine didn't suit conservative British operators. Bedford's production exceeded 100,000 units in 1960. By the mid-1980s, annual output declined below 15,000. When the Ministry of Defence awarded a major 4x4 truck contract to Leyland instead of Bedford, GM closed the Dunstable facility. The 1986 closure cost thousands of jobs. Foden struggled throughout the late 1970s. The company had built a massive new production facility designed for 6,000 trucks annually based on expected boom conditions. Instead, the market collapsed. The expenditure and economic downturn drove Foden into financial difficulty in December 1974. Harold Wilson's Labour government provided support, but Foden bounced between profit and loss. When receivers were finally called in 1980, American truck giant PACCAR acquired the company. By 1986, Foden employed just 450 workers, down from 3,000 at its peak. ERF, established in 1933 by Edwin Richard Foden, was never a major manufacturer. Domestic sales reached only 1,083 trucks in 1981. The company survived longer than some rivals, but couldn't match the development resources of larger European competitors. Canadian truckmaker Western Star bought ERF in 1996. After PACCAR's acquisitions of Foden, DAF and Leyland trucks increased competitive pressure, Western Star sold ERF to MAN in 2002. The Middlewich factory closed. MAN discontinued the ERF mark in 2007. Leyland suffered most. The British Leyland debacle became a cautionary tale of government mismanagement and corporate dysfunction. Following nationalisation in 1975, the truck division became Leyland Vehicles, then Leyland Trucks, in 1981. Sir Michael Edwards had purged profitable truck Marcus, AEC Albion Guy, to save the failing car division. Wolverhampton's Guy plant closed in 1982 with 740 job losses. Leyland finally launched the T45 road train in 1980. It should have arrived 5 years earlier. The cab was decent. The mechanicals were solid. But the cab was smaller than Volvo's Globetrotter and DAF's Space Cab. Fleet operators who prioritised driver comfort chose foreign alternatives. Major UK fleets like Tesco and Mothercare bought road trains, but sales slowly slipped away as Leyland lacked the long-term development resources European rivals exploited. Why Britain failed. Multiple factors destroyed Britain's haulage dominance. Government policy was catastrophic. Over 900 local British councils introduced lorry bans by 1982, a glaring example of official ignorance of how supply chains actually work. Anti-truck sentiment mirrored today's Extinction Rebellion protests. The government that should have supported a vital industry instead undermined it. Investment starvation killed development. British Leyland poured resources into failing car divisions while starving truck operations. When competitors launched new models with modern cabs, powerful engines, and advanced features, British manufacturers cobbled together updates from existing parts bins. The gap in capability grew insurmountable. Complacency bred failure. Decades of protected markets and loyal customers had convinced British manufacturers they were invincible. When Volvo and DAF arrived offering genuinely superior products, British companies dismissed them as curious foreign experiments. By the time British manufacturers recognised the threat, they'd already lost market share. Quality control deteriorated. As financial pressure mounted, British manufacturers cut corners. Panel gaps widened, paint quality declined, reliability suffered. Volvo and DAF trucks arrived and simply worked. Day after day, week after week. British trucks increasingly didn't. Fleet managers noticed. Purchasing decisions followed. The cab crisis destroyed competitiveness. Volvo's Globetrotter and DAF's Space Cab recognised that drivers were customers too. Spacious interiors, comfortable beds, excellent visibility, thoughtful storage, these weren't luxuries. They were essentials for long-haul operators. British manufacturers built cabs that felt like delivery vans. Drivers voted with their applications. They wanted to drive Volvos, not Leylands. The final nail, General Motors' rejected takeover bid for Leyland, represented a sliding doors moment. GM, the world's largest manufacturing group and Bedford's parent, wanted to acquire Leyland. The British government rejected the bid. GM responded by closing Bedford in 1986. Had the takeover succeeded, British truck manufacturing might have survived under American investment and management. Instead, both Bedford and Leyland eventually died. The rejection illustrated fundamental misunderstanding of market realities. Government officials believed British truck manufacturers could compete globally without major investment. They were wrong. Volvo, DAF, Scania and Mercedes invested billions in development. They built better trucks. British manufacturers, starved of capital and strangled by bureaucracy, couldn't compete. When Leyland was finally rescued by merging with DAF in 1987, it was too late. The road train became the Leyland DAF 80 series in 1991, ironically powered by an 11.6-litre DAF engine based on an old Leyland 0.680 unit. Production ceased in 1994, replaced by the DAF 85 series. British Leyland, once Europe's major truck manufacturer, had become a badge engineering exercise for a Dutch company. Volvo's triumph today. Volvo dominates the European truck market. In 2024, Volvo trucks achieved 17.9% market share in Europe, the highest ever. The company registered 56,331 trucks in the region. It's the market leader in heavy trucks, 16 tonnes and above. The UK, France, Germany, Poland and Spain are top markets. In the UK specifically, Volvo recorded significant growth in 2022, registering 5,906 trucks despite supply chain shortages. Christian Coulsayet, managing director of Volvo Trucks UK and Ireland, noted spiralling fuel prices drove operators to prioritise fuel efficiency. Volvo's FH with iSave range met that demand. The pipeline included over 7,000 new orders.